What do you believe is the most pressing growth-related issue? And what is your plan to manage growth and the effects of growth?
That's a great question. Growth is inevitable. We are mandated, the city of Tacoma is mandated by the state of Washington to prepare for this type of growth. And I think we've been doing a good job of that. Right now, what the city of Tacoma is working on is our affordable housing action strategy, which is taking into the account that the city will increase its population by almost $100,000 and 100,000 people in the next 20 years or so. And with that, we have to make sure that we can accommodate everybody, ensure that people have a safe, comfortable place to live. So we have to build. We have to build up. We have to make our city more dense. And that's hard for a lot of people to accept, but that's the reality that we face. And we have to be strategic when we do that building. We have to ensure that we are creating opportunities and incentivizing developers to build more affordable housing in our city. And the city of Tacoma is doing a better job at that. We're working on fixing some of the issues that have caused people concern, which is that 8-year tax abatement, which I'm sure will come up several times this evening. It's my understanding, working with staff, that the 8-year tax abatement has produced more housing. What it hasn't done is it hasn't produced more affordable housing, which is what we use the 12-year tax abatement for. The problem is developers are struggling to finance these projects without that additional support from the city of Tacoma. So I'm a firm believer that the city of Tacoma needs to continue to work with developers. We need to get more out of these developers so that it can benefit the residents of Tacoma. But we must build more housing, and our goal at this point is to build 1,000 more affordable housing units every year for the next 2 years. And I'm pleased that I've been a part of the council that has set that standard. Thank you.
I think everybody can agree that building more affordable housing should be a top priority in the city. And like Keith mentioned, that there's going to be an influx of citizens of up to 100,000 people, and we definitely need that housing. However, we also have to think about employment. What jobs are these 100,000 people going to take? Are we doing a good enough job at creating employment for these individuals as we are doing affordable housing? I think we need to focus on creating employment for people who are at lower income levels that can who are able to get better wage paying jobs, who will be able to earn more income, and then who have more disposable income to circulate through the economy. So I think we not only have to focus on building more houses, more affordable housing, but also focus on creating more jobs, and not just jobs across the board, but for jobs that cater to individuals who are already living in the city of Tacoma. Those are workforce jobs and middle-class jobs.
I agree that housing is the most pressing issue. And when we're talking about population density increases, we also have to look at multiple factors within that, and I call it advanced community planning. It's increasing density, so more buildings or up zoning, increasing transportation, public transportation routes, frequency, and hours of service. We need to make sure that there is green space and public gardening space to increase urban food security. And we need to make sure business space, especially local entrepreneurial space, is planned into that as well. I'd like to see a municipal bank to help with all of that, and perhaps a public construction company. And I am a fan of the Vienna Housing Project, which allows for public housing at every economic financial status. So be you poor or wealthy, you too can live in public housing. Thank you.
Yeah, so the answer is affordable housing. So in a city of 80,000 or so households, where half the households rent and half the households own, when we have the kind of economic boom, I think what Brett would say, we had the highest real estate market in the country just recently. The homeowners see a boom, the renters see a bust, and we see displacement and gentrification. We see more people living in their vehicles. And on top of that, this is a city that's growing. It's going to add, as Councilmember Blocker said, another 100,000+ people over the next 10 years. So affordable housing, last year's City Council worked extremely hard to develop what I think is an extremely thoughtful, comprehensive comprehensive affordable housing action strategy that basically throws on the table every type of incentive, regulation possible. But the key is they have to work. They have to work in the real world, because the city council doesn't build housing. We pass through some HUD money to our partners that do, and our great partner, the Tacoma Housing Authority, can't build their way out of it. So what's extremely key, and keep in mind, we're in a city that doesn't just need more affordable housing units, that's 40% cost burden. We're a city that needs housing across the gamut. So it's good planning, it's good zoning, it's partnering with the people who actually fund and build the housing, and it's really making sure that as we build this city up, that there's a place for everyone in the city to live without fear of the desperation that comes with knowing that your rent's gonna pump up 10% in the next month, and that means you and your family might be on the wait list at the shelters that are filled right now.
So, as been said, affordable housing is the #1 priority to manage this growth. And I think the way we need to manage it is to learn as we go. So we've had the multifamily tax exemption for 12 years that was supposed to help produce affordable housing, and it hasn't produced any. Now, there's only so many levers there that we can adjust to make that be more effective. And that's the size of the housing project, the income of the people that we're going to target for affordability, and where it gets built and the geography. And so I think we haven't learned those lessons yet, as evidenced by the fact that the 12-year multifamily tax exemption isn't producing the effects that we want. And so we need to do a lot of deep dive and understanding why we haven't been as effective as we want to be. And its associated issue to affordable housing is living wage jobs. And what I've been doing to try to manage that is I'm going around talking to as many local business owners who will spend the time with me to find out what are the obstacles between you and hiring more living wage jobs here in Tacoma. And some patterns are emerging for things that we can work on at the city to try to foster that kind of living wage job growth that we need to also manage this growth issue.
I agree with most of my colleagues here that have said affordable housing is really the #1 issue when it comes to growth. But of course, that is not an issue that we approach in a silo. Affordability and housing, obviously very intricately connected, but also housing and transportation. And if we're not thinking about the way our land use planning is done and where we're building housing and how it's connected to transit, we're not going to be successful. We're also going to waste some of our investment, and we're going to set people, particularly people who need it the most, up for failure. So I think we need to be having that conversation as a whole, affordable housing and transportation, particularly public transportation, and making sure that we're building in areas, incentivizing in areas, as my colleagues have said, using the tax abatement tools that we have to incentivize folks to build in areas that make sense from a land use perspective. I think we also, as we're having the conversation around homelessness, we need to make sure we're investing, but we also need to make sure that we're looking at the upstream effects so that we're not, as we're solving the problem, that we aren't pricing more people into homelessness. And I think, again, we can't have either of those conversations in a silo. We need to be finding solutions that attack the problem from a systematic level, as well as sheltering people who are in an emergency situation.
Yeah, I would say, as everybody said, housing is a critical issue. I think what we need to make sure we do is kind of, as we think about addressing it, breaking it apart a little bit. So at one level, we need to make sure there's more housing built, market level rate of housing, just more. 3,000 to 4,000 people a year are moving to Tacoma. That's new residents. We need places for them to live, or else they're going to put downward pressure on the market and lead to displacement and gentrification. So we need more housing built, and that looks at maybe removing regulations that are slowing some of the housing that's being built, looking at land use, as Kristina said. Then as we go down, I'm on the YWCA board. We're building a 54-unit affordable housing project for victims of domestic violence or started domestic violence at 80% AMI, so basically homeless housing. And that requires a huge subsidy from the state and from the federal government to get that to happen. So if we want to look at getting 30% of AMI, helping those most in need. It's going to be getting more dollars from the state and the state housing trust fund, which they added more dollars to it. Yes, Jake, you did add a lot more there. Looking at, they gave us ability with the state sales tax, take more sales tax dollars and add them to our affordable housing trust to pay for affordable housing. There's lots of pieces there to get some of that built that I want to look at. I also think we need to go to the state and look at getting a 20-year tax abatement for 50% or lower AMI, so we can get more housing built with incentives. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, with this new growth, we're talking about a whole bunch of new neighbors coming into our community, which can be exciting and frustrating all at once, and I agree. We need more housing. There's no question. We've got an inventory that we need more rentals, we need more opportunities for ownership just across the board throughout every corner of our community. And with that, we need to be looking at not only at the jobs and those opportunities there, and building and maintaining our infrastructure, making sure that as we're making our roads better, making our storm drains better, making our sewers better, that we're telling folks, hey, when you go to dispatch these workers to these sites, let's be sure that we're hiring in Tacoma first, that we're going to help stabilize areas of our community that were pointed out in the disparity study with jobs, building a better Tacoma. And while we're doing that, let's put folks to work with through apprenticeship programs. So we're also training the next generation of workers. Same thing with making, like Kristina said, multimodal transportation being a part of this. And yeah, that's more housing.